Welcome to Table for One. I'm the narrator, and this video is going to be a rules refresher for Trickerion. And so in this video, I am going to teach you how to play the solo mode against the automated opponent, the Heir. Let's get rolling. Alright, so I am set up to teach you how to play Trickerion's solo mode against the automated opponent, the Heir. Now, a couple things to mention up top. First, I've got chapter markers, so if you're looking for something specific, utilize that to find it quickly. And second, I will be playing with just the base game of Trickerion and including the Dark Alley. I don't have any other expansions in this video, but I will be making rules refresher videos for each of the expansions individually. So the Academy and the Dawn of Technology and Arcane Arts. And in each of those videos, I will describe how the solo mode is affected by including that expansion. But in order to play the solo mode, you have to, at the minimum, include the Dark Alley. If you don't know how to play Dark Alley, I've got a rules refresher video coming on that tomorrow, so you can check that out. And then finally, I am making this video under the assumption that you already know how to play Trickerion. So I'm not going to be teaching the game itself, just how to run the solo mode, which really that is enough for its own video. But I don't intend on teaching all of Trickerion. If you need to learn how to play that, I learned by watching a few videos. I watched Knights Around a Table and Before You Play and Gaming Rules. So I found all of those helpful. I'd recommend any of them or all of them like I did if you want to learn how to play Trickerion, and then you can come back here to learn how to play the solo mode. And the last thing I need to do before I get started is thank my coffee contributors. So if you'd like to support Table for One, head over to my coffee page, ko-fi, link in the description. For my monthly contributors, that is the reserved seating section. So thank you very much to each of you. That is the most reliable way to help the channel. And then the Head of the Table award is for my top 10 contributors over the last 90 days at time of editing. And I would love to see your name on that list. So thank you to all of you as well. But let's jump into the heart of the video now. So I am not going to set up absolutely everything. I'm just going to set up the stuff that's relevant and different for solo mode. So in solo mode, you are playing a two-player game. You have one automated opponent, and your opponent is Dalgard's Heir. And so you're going to see this icon everywhere, this little purple leaf or purple quill. That is the icon in the game for solo. So there's going to be solo stuff all over the place. So again, it is required that you play with Dark Alley. So go in with that understanding and then go ahead and set up your player stuff. For a normal two-player game, nothing is going to be different about your setup when playing against the solo opponent. It'll be just like any other two-player game. So you will always be the first player. I've taken red here and I've put my little token up there for first player. So I would start with 10 coins. I would get to pick any one of the specialists, gain the board, gain the specialist, starting trick, starting components, all that stuff is the same. I'm not going to do that right now. All I've done is pick my my specialty, my school of magic, and my magician. I went with the priestess of mysticism. So that is the spiritual school of magic. So I've got my board. Okay, let's move on with the rest of it. So first thing to point out is actually the Heir's board itself is two-sided. This side has the Dark Alley icon, and the other side has the Academy icon. So if you're playing with the Academy, you're going to use this side of the board, but I'll get to that in another video. I'm playing without the Academy, so I'm using the Dark Alley side of the board here. So there are five assignment slots. You've got these two tokens. You can place them here for now, but they're not going to be there long. That's a place to store them. That's fine. Give the Heir, in addition to their board, the same permanent assignment cards that you have. So one Dark Alley, two Theater, one Workshop, one Market Row, and one Downtown. And we'll go ahead and put, I chose yellow for them. We're going to put their marker here. They start with 5 fame, just like you do. Go ahead and take their little turn order marker here and put it on the number 3 slot. And remember, in a two-player game, you only use slots 1 and 3. And as I said, you are always the first player. So the Heir starts on the other spot. They're going to gain their magician in the magician spot. They will get a specialist, and then you put one apprentice here in the third spot, and the order does matter from left to right. Now, the rulebook states that for the starting specialist, that the heir doesn't care what kind of specialist they get, but it will matter in one small way later in the game. So I like to take all 3 specialists, just shuffle them or shake them up in my hand and drop one at random. All right, so in this playthrough, they're going to have the engineer. And then, unlike you, the opponent will start with no coins and no Trickerion shards, but these are the locations on the board where you can store those things. Now, I need to go back and mention something else about the starting characters. So for the heir, you do need to pick a difficulty mode, so I assumed easy mode right now. We're not playing with the academy, so ignore the protege. So for easy mode, you start with 1 specialist and 1 apprentice. If you're playing on normal, you add a second apprentice here. And if you're playing on hard, you have 1 apprentice, but you add another specialist. And the discs on this board, always from left to right, start with the magician, then go to the specialists, and then apprentices are last. And if you have more apprentices than will fit in these slots, just start stacking them up here in that last spot there. Now, something else we need to set up is the starting components. Normally, the placement doesn't matter, but it could matter when playing solo. So take 1 of each of the starting components. Again, just shuffle them up in your hand or shake them up in your hand and drop them 1 at a time, and then place them in that order from left to right and then top to bottom is the way that I do it. The rulebook doesn't really specify, but I think that makes sense. Drop those at the same time. Try again. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so I'm going to put, what is that? Glass, wood, metal, and I can never remember if this is cloth or fabric. I want to say fabric. So I'll put it in those spots. Okay, that's not the right spots over there. All right, that's set up now. The next thing you're going to do, let's see. We can roll these dice as usual. I'm going to roll the black and gray dice all together like this and then place them out. So we've got a 6 and a 4 here. And then we've got an apprentice and an X. And then these white dice for learning tricks, I'm going to roll 1 at a time and then place them left to right. So that one and an X. That can be relevant sometimes as well. Next, we've got these new dice over here. So there's 4 of these, and then grab 2 of these purple blocking tokens for each of the dice. So I have 8 of them. If you're playing with the academy, you'll have another die and 2 more of these. So these can all be rolled now. And place them at their color coordinated locations. Like that, and like that. And then you are going to block off the 2 locations indicated by each die. So the middle 2 here, the right 2 for the dark alley. For the downtown, we're going to have the outsides. And for the theater, we will have the insides. And this will change from one round to the next, but just leave the dice out for now. And next we've got to set up these theater cards. Did I even grab the right one for this? Yes, I did. Okay, so make sure you're using the theater cards that have the solo icon on it. The rulebook does state that these work exactly the same way as the Duel of Magicians performance cards, and you can mix and match both sets for solo and for 2-player games if that's something you want to do. I don't know that I'm interested in curating these decks, but otherwise you're going to take these cards and they should be all mixed up, and you'll need 2 of these and 2 of those and any 2 of these, and then you've got your deck of 6, and I've drawn 1 card and placed it out as if it were a 2-player game. So the rest of these can all go back to the box. You'll have 1 level 3, 1 level 2, and 3 level 1s that go back to the box. So then I can just take this and leave it nearby. That seems like a good spot right there. Now we are ready for the heir to pick their magician. So you're going to grab the, in this case, 8 magician cards. You know, there's a solo side, and then the other side's got the academy symbol. Use the solo side for the bot, even if you're choosing, even if they're going to play a magician that is from the academy, you still use the solo side. And so what you're going to do is, I've picked the Priestess of Mysticism, so I need to remove that one, and I need to remove all other magicians from the same school. So that's your Ruba here. and that leaves 6 left. Then you're going to shuffle these up and pick one at random. I'll just, since like the cards are easily visible, I'll draw from the bottom of the deck, and we get Master of Chains. So we'll just place that beside the Heir's board. That's who I'm playing against. And then look through the posters and find the appropriate poster for the magician you are playing against. And so each of these solo magicians for the Heir does have some sort of ongoing ability, and you can find those in page 15 of the solo rulebook here. So they're all described in detail. And so for Master of Change, the first trick that is placed for the Heir each turn may be rotated freely so that the type of trick that is being placed does not have to be in the circle. Now, speaking of that, one thing I don't think I pointed out with these cards is that these theater cards have pre-printed icons on them, which you can use to gain link bonuses. So that just helps with 2-player and solo, which are also sort of a 2-player game, to get enough link bonuses as you play. And so now that this magician has a favorite trick category, they like the chains or escape type tricks, we're going to go over to the escape tricks and find their starting trick. And so what you do is you take the 4 level 1 tricks, the starting tricks. One of them, regardless of category, will only have one component required to set it up. So barricaded barrels, in this case, only needs wood. We're going to remove that one, take the other 3, shuffle them up, and then that will be the starting trick for the Heir. So they're going to get Stocks Escape. Now we can take, the rest of these and put them back on the display. And the starting trick will go in the leftmost slot above the Heir's board. And you can see the icons here. These stars are descending. That is to help you remember that the order left to right is going to matter as we play. And then we need to mark the trick. So I've got the yellow spade. And then the Heir always starts with their trick set up. So there are 2 markers. This is a 2, this trick holds 2 markers, so I'm going to go ahead and place those there. So the trick starts set up. Then this trick requires wood and metal, so we're going to go to the supply, take a wood and a metal, and place them in this area of the Heir's board. This means that they need to, at some point, go to the market and buy those things. So I know they get to go out of order a little bit. They get to have the trick set up before they buy the stuff, but that's just how the Heir works. Now, the next thing we need to deal with are these plan cards, the Heir's plan. And so you're going to have 8 of these, and check the backside. I'm using the ones with Dark Alley. Of course, if you're using the Academy expansion, you're going to have the ones with the Academy symbol on it. But there are going to be 8, and they come in 2 styles, 4 and 4. So half of them have this half circle at the top, or they all have a half circle at the top, but half have no half circle at the bottom and half do. So separate them into those 2 types of piles. And these here with nothing on the bottom are called setup cards, and these with something on the bottom are called perform cards. You're going to take each of those stacks and individually shuffle them so you don't know what's there. And let me show you how to build this deck. And again, this will change if you're playing with other expansions. I will cover that when I cover those expansions. So we've got our setup cards on the left and our perform cards on the right. We're going to start by taking 1 random perform card and put it on the bottom of the deck. Then we're going to take 2 random perform cards, 1 random setup card, shuffle them together, and put 2 of them on top of the deck and discard the 3rd card without looking at it. It won't be in the game. So here's 2. I don't know what this one is. It gets removed. Then we take 2 setup cards and 1 perform card. Again, shuffle them together. But in this case, we're going to keep them all. We just don't know the order. And finally, there's 1 setup card left. That goes on the top of the stack. And we're just going to put this nearby, near the Heir's board. Now, after everything else is set up, we can go ahead and add our prophecies, because that's always the last step in setup. So I like to just use a draw bag. There, and then 1 more. One thing I need to point out about the prophecies is that a few specific ones are removed from solo play. So that's these 3 right here. And these are shown in the book as well. And you might have to zoom in on those. I'll try and hold them up, but I don't know if it'll keep its focus. But these three base Dark Alley tokens are removed from the game. And since I almost always play Trickerion solo, I just keep those stored a little bit separately so I don't have to go looking for them every time. Now, this is a little bit of a pain, but on page 14, at the end of the solo rulebook here, it's telling you, hey, these are the prophecies you remove. There's these 3 plus 1 for the Academy. There's also several prophecies here. It looks like 12 from the base game plus 1 from the Academy that only affect you and not the heir. So you might want to check that your first few times through, but as you start to learn how to play, you'll find that these are a little bit intuitive, so you'll kind of know that. But it is there in the booklet. So that's it for setup. Again, my setup is not complete here, but the heir is good. The board is mostly good. So let me walk through the different phases of gameplay and talk about how this is all going to work. So of course, at the beginning of each round, not including round 1 because we just did setup, you roll all the downtown dice. You have this dice roll phase. At that time, you're also going to re-roll these dice, but every round after the first, you're not going to re-roll all of them, only some. So we just, this was our setup. This is how we set up. At the end of round 1, when we're going into round 2 and we're rolling the dice, you as the player get to pick any 2 of these to re-roll, and the other 2 will not be re-rolled. And so let's say, just for demonstration purposes, that I want to keep the downtown and the theater as they are. I want to re-roll the market and the dark alley. That's when you grab these 2 tokens, and you're going to set them here, re-roll these 2 dice. You're going to set this up however it says, like that. And then you're going to place these dice that you just rolled on top of those markers. Now the next round, when we get to the re-roll phase, the 2 with the markers under them cannot be rolled. You must roll the other ones and then move the markers. Now, when we're playing with just the Dark Alley like this, that means it's going to be the same set of 2 dice, each round sort of alternating which 2 are getting re-rolled. And I'll talk about this more when I do a rules refresher on the Academy, but when you play at the Academy, there's another die. So that means 2 or 3 of them would get re-rolled and 2 would not, and then you've got a better decision space instead of things just sort of bouncing back and forth between this set, this set, this set, this set. You can kind of pick which dice you want to be re-rolled like that. You have the decision, but it's more interesting when there's a 5th die in play. Although one other important note that I don't want to forget, if it is time to roll these blocking dice at the beginning of the round, and there is ever not a marker under the theater die, you must roll that one. So as long as the theater die can be rolled, you have to. So that one's going to be changing the most frequently. So I'll just point that out now. But that's how the dice rolling phase works. And then again, just for these white dice for learning tricks, I roll them one at a time, left and then right. I'll show you why that's relevant later. After rolling dice is the set initiative phase. So we just determine who's the first player, who's the second player. That works exactly the same way as the base game. Whoever has the least fame is the first player for that round. And if you're tied for fame, then you just switch places of wherever you were the round before. So easy enough. Then we have the advertising phase. And in this phase, the heir always advertises and does it for free. They don't have to spend any coins. They just gain 2 fame during this stage every round, and you put their poster out. So must be nice, right? But for you, if you're the first player, or if you're first in turn order, I should say, you can choose to spend 1 coin to gain 2 fame, or if you're in the second position, which is the third position, if you're second in turn order, third position, you could choose to spend 3 coins to gain 2 fame. But for you, it's just the normal mechanics, the normal options for you. The heir always gets the 2 fame without having to spend anything. So after advertising, we have the assignment phase. And this works as you might expect. You start where you assign whatever you want to do first. So, maybe I'm going to go to the, I can leave them face up, Dark Alley and Market Row. Say I'm going to do that, right? Okay, so you don't need to bother putting them face down because you don't have another human player. But you go ahead, do your assignment the normal way. Everything works as you would expect. Then and only then, when you are fully done with locking in your assignments, you will reveal this first card from the heir's plan. Now, if it has only an icon on the top, then you're going to place the card on the bottom so that it makes this nice circle where the icons match. If, for example, though, this would never happen in round 1, but if you reveal a card like this, where it has the icon on the top and the bottom, then place the card on the top so it makes this icon here on the bottom match. So what these icons are showing are the icon on the top. This is your setup card. It has a picture of a trick. So it means the heir is going to be, setting up. Here, let me do this one. Setting up, trying to get tricks this time. The performance cards have the performance icon on the bottom where the heir is really trying to perform some tricks. So we'll set this one back aside. This is the one we drew for the first round. We'll show this. And so when you draw that card, you then place the assignment cards shown on the card from left to right using only the permanent or standard assignment cards. These, you don't use any of these special assignment cards that they may have gained from the dark alley, because they can gain some of these. You don't use it unless you see this icon here. That is the special assignment card for the downtown. So the card may show more assignment cards than the heir has characters, in which case you just place out as many as you can and then stop. It's also possible that the heir will have more characters than the card says to place out assignment cards, in which case, again, just place out as many cards as you can and then stop. Now, if we go back to the other example again, let's just say that it looked like this and we needed to place assignment cards. Well, we've got the theater card and then another theater, and then it says theater special assignment. We don't have a theater special assignment for the heir right now. So if it tells them to place a special assignment card, which they do not have, you just skip that space. And if they had another worker here, another character, you would still keep going. That one would be downtown. If they had another, that would be dark alley. So you just skip over the space if they can't fulfill that. So let's put these away now. We'll start with this one. Like this, and like that, and like that. All right, there's a couple of concepts that we need to go over now before we can keep going. So the first is the heir's stance. The stance can be either busy or ready. So if the heir's current plan card only has the icon on the top, that means it's a setup card, then they are always busy. So that's easy enough. If the heir's current plan card is a performance card, then they might be ready. So the other qualifier is, does the heir currently have at least one trick of the maximum level available to them? So right now they can only have a level 1 trick, but once they get past up to 16 fame, they could have a level 2 trick. Once they get to 36 fame, they could have a level 3 trick. So if they have a performance card as their current plan card, and they have at least one trick in their tableau here, they have one trick of the highest level available to them, regardless of what school of magic it's from. It doesn't matter, just at the highest level available to them. If they have both of those things, then they are considered ready. So if the heir is ready, then this card stays in the top slot. Whenever the heir is busy, then this slides down to the bottom slot. And this can change mid-turn. So say, just for example, they had this much fame. This is a performance card, but they do not currently have a trick at the highest level available to them. They could have a level 2 trick. If they acquire one, then they become ready, and you slide this card up. So that can change mid-turn or in the middle of the round. So it's something you have to keep an eye on. Now, why this is relevant is because these two pre-printed spots on the board are a priority order for the heir to send their characters to different locations. So if they are if they don't have a performance card and or they don't have a trick of the top level available to them, they're going to prioritize going to the downtown and trying to get tricks. Whereas if they've got a performance card and they've got a trick of the highest level available, we're going to slide this up, they're going to prioritize going to the theater over going downtown because they're like ready to perform. And that's why this can change mid-round. If they're here and then they go to downtown, acquire a trick of the highest level available to them, now they're going to become ready and start prioritizing going to the theater to perform that trick. So that is the heir's stance. Either busy or ready. On the first round, they're always going to be busy. Although it can go both directions too. Like if they drew this card and they had, say, 15 fame, they are ready. And then if something happens mid-round where they gain some more fame, now they no longer have a trick of the highest level available to them, so they would slide back down to busy. So it could go in either direction. So be aware of that. Let's talk now about contested locations. So a location is contested if both the player and the heir have an unassigned character, so a character still on their player board here, that are assigned to the same location. A couple of small caveats there. The workshop, because we can both place to the workshop. The workshop is never considered contested because we each have our own individual workshop, so we're not going to be able to block each other there. And then there's a special case for the theater. The theater is not considered contested if either the player or the heir only has the magician left assigned but not yet placed. So if the only not placed person you've got left is the magician, the theater is no longer considered contested, even though we both have theater. So those are the two big concepts we needed to cover before we can get into placing characters. The stance, either being ready or busy, and then the idea of contested locations. So now we got those concepts out of the way. So we've placed their assignment cards. In turn order, we're just going to go back and forth, taking our turns as normal. I'm first player, so I can place one of my characters at a location, right? Let's just say I do that. Now it's the heir's turn, and they've got to decide which character are they going to send and where are they going to send them and what place are they going to prioritize. So this is one of the trickiest parts of the game, but it does make some sense. So first they're going to look, is anything contested? And maybe let me switch this back to something else. Let me put this downtown. Okay, is anything contested? If and we look, I want to go downtown and I have a character that's not placed yet, and they want to go downtown with a character not yet placed. So downtown is contested. Actually, you know what? Let me make that a different example. Let me go with Market Row here. Okay, Market Row is contested. We both want to go to Market Row. They want to go to downtown as well. That's not contested. They want to go to the theater. That's not contested. So because there is exactly one contested place, that is where they will prefer. So they will then, so now they've decided Market Row. Then looking at all their characters, they will take the leftmost character that wants to go to Market Row and send them there. So that might be important because they might have, say, a magician or a specialist who's got two action points, or an apprentice who's got one action point. And as I said earlier, you always put the magician on the left and then the specialists and then the apprentices. So they're going to pick whoever has the most action points. That's why they're going left or right. Take that character and then place them in the leftmost open spot. So they're going to maximize their action points. That makes sense. Now, of course, there are some caveats here too. If they have more than one character assigned to the theater, and they're going to the theater, this is the one time they do not prioritize left or right. They prioritize left or right minus the magician. If the magician is going to the theater, that's always the last person they will send to the theater. They'll go backstage first and set some stuff up because, you know, they want to prioritize getting some placement spots on those theater cards. So that makes sense to me as well, but just important to call that rule out. And then if I bring this back, change a couple things up here, like so. Okay, let's say I had a specialist and I already sent them somewhere. I don't even have the sideboard. So we'll say I sent my specialist to the workshop for whatever reason. That was my first turn. Now it's the heir's turn. They check, is anything contested? Well, Market Row is contested and downtown is contested. So how do they break the tie now? Well, in the event there is more than one contested location, or alternatively, in the event that there are no contested locations, in either case, this pre-printed side is going to show their priority order of what they want to do. So right now we are in busy mode. So from left to right, the first thing they want to do is go downtown. So if they were both contested, they would prioritize downtown and then send their leftmost character who's assigned to downtown. So yeah, they prioritize downtown first, then the theater, starting with Sunday and working their way left, then Market Row, then Dark Alley, and then the workshop. If they were not in busy mode and they were instead ready, then they would prioritize first the theater, starting with the Thursday slot and then working to the right, then the downtown, then Market Row, then Dark Alley, and then Workshop last. So basically, it's the same priority list, but if they're in busy mode, they're going to want to go to downtown and then prioritize the right half of the theater. If they are in ready mode, then they will prioritize the theater, starting with the left part, and then downtown after that. So hopefully that was clear. And then each time the heir places a character, you're going to evaluate that whole thing again. Because from one placement to the next, the heir's stance can change from busy to ready or vice versa. And whether a location is contested or not can change between one of their turns and the next. So let me just summarize that whole thing again. When it's the heir's turn, first they check, are there any contested locations? If so, they will prefer to send a character there. If there are multiple contested locations, they will check their currently showing priority list, either this top part, wherever the card is not, or the bottom part, and they will use that as their priority list. And when they send a character to that location, once they've selected a location, they will pick the leftmost character they have, so the most action points, who is assigned to that location, with the exception that if they have multiple people going to the theater, they will not choose the magician. And then once they've selected where they're going and who is going there, they will always take the leftmost spot, so the most action points, again with the exception being the theater, that if they are in busy mode, they will prefer to start with Sunday, working the other direction, and then if they are in performance mode, then they will prefer Thursday, working this way. So that is how they choose where to go. Now, once they've picked a place and sent a character, so let's say they're sending the engineer downtown right there. The next thing we have to figure out is, what are they doing? And to determine that, we're going to need to know how many action points they have. So in most situations, this is going to be very straightforward. We sent a specialist here. They get 2 + 1. They've got 3 action points to spend. The downtown and Market Row and Dark Alley all work as you expect. The theater is a little different. You just have to remember that the Thursday and Sunday slots, those modifiers are ignored, and the heir just always gains whatever they have on their worker that goes there. Now, a couple other things that generally apply across the board for determining the action points available to the heir when they send a character somewhere. First is, they never spend shards. They never spend shards for any reason. So they won't spend a shard to gain an action point. They're just going to collect shards for end of game points. Then whenever the heir uses a special assignment card, they always ignore the text in favor of gaining the extra action point. So that is always the case. That makes it a little bit easier. And finally, and somewhat painfully, after you determine the amount of action points, it's basically a bunch of spreadsheets that tell you how this is going to be resolved. But these all go from how many action points do they have, from 1 to 5. In the very unlikely case that they have 6 action points, just treat it as 5. Just treat the last column as 5 or more. So each of these little mini spreadsheets is basically how many action points do they have to spend, and are you playing on easy, normal, or hard mode. So there's a little player aid on the back of the rule book, but we'll go through each of the locations one at a time. Now, we've already gone to the downtown. That is the most complicated one, so let's just go ahead and start there. It's not actually that complicated. It's just a priority list, so we got to talk about it. So first, in this particular case, we sent a specialist with 2 action points to a location with 1 action point. They've got 3 action points total. Then we check our little table here. So 3 action points, if we're playing on easy mode, they're going to resolve 1 die. On normal mode, 1 die. On hard mode, 2 die. So you can see the ranges from 1 to 3 die that they are going to resolve. Now let's just say, for sake of argument, that all of these show an X right now. Let's say there are all X's. So we don't have enough dice available to resolve compared to the amount that the chart tells us to. In that instance, and it could be not that they're all X's, but say you've got to resolve 3 dice and there's only 2 available and the rest are X's, right? In those cases, the heir may re-roll exactly 1 die. And if you've got options about that, the priority is, first they're going to re-roll a trick die. If that's not one of the options, they'll re-roll a specialist. And if that's not one of the options, they'll re-roll the money die. And then finally, if that's not the option, they'll re-roll the apprentice die. Now, after that 1 roll, if it either comes up as an X again, or if they still have more actions available than there are dice to resolve, they're just going to resolve fewer dice. Now, personally, I haven't even run into that yet, but I just wanted to call it out. Now, if they've got a bunch of actions available to them, such as this case, now we need to determine the priority order. What are they going to do? So there are 6 things that they could do here, and we're going to go in order. Number 1, if the heir has fewer than 2 tricks with the highest level available to it, Or if the heir has 36 or more fame, then set one of the trick die to X, and if both are available, you pick the left one. That is why in the dice roll phase, I roll those left to right, because they're going to prioritize the one to the left. And so I don't want to roll 2 dice and then get to choose which goes where. I roll them one at a time so it's randomized. And as usual, if it's showing a question mark, then take their favorite trick category. So it'd be escape tricks in this case with them playing Master of Chains. So you then set the relevant die to X, and in this case, they're gaining a trick. So they're going to gain a trick at the highest level available to it. Right now, that would be at level 1. So then you take all of the tricks of that type. If you're at level 1, again, remove the one that only has a single component requirement, like barricaded barrels like we did earlier. Shuffle the rest that are left, take that trick. Then the ones you did not take, you just return back to the offer as usual. Now, just as an example, let's just say that, I don't know, this whatever, we'll just assume they took one of these, right? And that they got that one, just so I have something to show you. So they gain this trick. First thing you need to do is evaluate it with the other tricks that they have. And their tricks get rearranged from left to right, whichever has the most fame. If they're tied for fame, whichever has, or we're looking at their yields, sorry, whichever provides the most shards. And then finally, whichever provides the most money. So in this example, this one provides 0 fame, this one is 3 fame. So we're going to shift this to the right and then place this trick here. Now, if they already had 4 tricks, the one that falls off is removed. You would remove its trick marker and all of its associated tricks. And if it has any tricks out on the theater cards, you would remove those as well. And whatever trick card that was that kind of falls off the side, return it to its stack here on the left. Then, after you get this new trick, you're going to place a trick marker on it and immediately set up the trick for its maximum value. And just like we did during setup, we would look at these component icons and place one of each of those components from the supply in this box here. This is the shopping list, unless that component is already there. So in this example, we had placed the animal and we had placed the fabric, but this says metal and we already have a metal here, so we don't need more than one copy. But as long as at least one of each goes in the shopping list, then you're good. So just to demonstrate this, we'll set up this trick like so. All right, so again, from left to right, prioritizing fame, then shards, and then money. Now again, that's what we do if the heir has fewer than 2 tricks with the highest level available to it, or if they have 36 or more fame. If that is not the case, or if both of those are X's, then you move on to priority number 2. You check the specialist die. So right now it's that gray die showing an X, but the rule is if the specialist die is showing a specialist that the heir doesn't have. So let's say, for example, this had, they've already got an engineer. Let's say this is a manager. So it's showing a specialist they don't have. Then set this to X, and they would gain that specialist. So in this case, it would be the manager. And just like a human opponent, you leave that token off to the side until sort of the cleanup phase, and then they come back to the board. And so again, this is why it's sort of relevant during the game, which specialists the heir already has. So that's why I randomized the engineer at the beginning, because you kind of don't know what's going to come up on that die, and they'll only get that specialist if they don't have that specialist yet. So if that specialist die is showing an X, or if it's a specialist they already have, then you move on to priority 3, you check the apprentice die. So if the apprentice die is available and the heir doesn't have all 4 of their apprentices yet, and the heir is a total of 5 or fewer character discs, then set the apprentice die to X and they will gain the apprentice at the end of the turn, or at the end of the round, I should say. Priority 4 is if a bank die is available, set the higher valued available bank die to X and then gain the corresponding coins. So those will just go right here in the coin area of the heir's board. And now for priorities 5 and 6, I have to stop and explain something else, that if the heir is resolving multiple dice in one trip to the downtown, let's say the first thing they did was get the trick, and they did in fact get the trick. The second thing they're going to do, you don't start again at the top of that list at priority 1. You move on to the next one. So you keep going down the list whether they can do it or not. So if the first thing they did was grab a trick and they can do another thing, they're not going to try and get another trick. They're going to check, is there a specialist available? If not, then they're going to check, is there an apprentice? And then if not, you'll keep going, is there a bank die available? So step number 5 is check to see if the second bank die is available. available. And if it is, set it to X, grab the coins. And then step 6 is we're going to go back to the apprentice die. And if that's available and they don't have all their apprentices yet, then they will gain an apprentice. Now, we're going back to it because, again, the first time we looked at it, we said, is it available? Does the heir have all their apprentices? And do they have 5 or fewer total characters? If they had their magician and then 3 specialists and an apprentice and a second apprentice right there, then they've got more than 5, so they would skip over that die, go to the bank die. But it's possible that they could get past the bank die. So the last thing they could do is then they can gain an additional apprentice as long as they have the physical tokens available in their inventory to grab it. But all these extra apprentices aren't going to be doing anything because they'll never be assigned any cards. So they don't really want to keep acquiring that many workers. This is not really worth much to them. So they're really doing it as a blocking thing at that point, and they'll gain some end of game points for it. But one more time, when you go to the downtown, you send your character there, send your worker there. How many action points do they have? Plus the action points for whatever location you went. And if it happened to be a special assignment card, 1 more action point. Total that up. Check the chart. How many dice do you get to resolve? And then you work your way from this list top to bottom. And if you get to resolve more than 1 die, you don't start over at the top of the list. You keep going. So priority 1, gain a trick if you don't have at least 2 tricks of your current fame level. And you prioritize the trick type on the die to the left if they're both available. Then you check, can you gain a specialist? And the answer is yes if it's showing a specialist and it's a specialist that the heir doesn't already have. Third, will they gain an apprentice? And the answer is yes if they have fewer than 4 apprentices and 5 or fewer total characters. Priority 4 is a bank die available? If so, grab the higher valued one, just gain the coins. Priority 5 is a second bank die available? If so, grab those coins. And priority 6 is go back to the apprentice die. As long as they don't have all their apprentice character discs yet, then they will gain an apprentice. And if somehow they get that far in the list and still have more actions available, they just stop. That's the end of their turn. So let's look quickly at this reference sheet for downtown. So again, here's your action points 1 to 5. Treat that as 5+. Easy, normal, or hard mode. Figure out how many dice there are to resolve. And then the preference is learn trick if less than 2 tricks of matching level. Hire specialist, hire apprentice. This says if less than 6 characters. It's actually if less than 5 because we're not playing with Academy. Then take coins, hire amount first, then other if available, then hire apprentice if able. So that's sort of the little summary on this chart. And I refer to this page all the time when I play, so you might want to get used to that as well. So that was downtown. That was a lot, I know. The other places will not be so difficult, I promise. Next, let's look at Market Row. So again, they're going to go to the leftmost spot, figure out how many action points they have available. This one's pretty easy. The first thing you do is you look at the shopping list, and let me update my shopping list. An animal and a cloth. For that second trick that we gained before, we'll put those in the shopping list. So when they go there, first they look at their shopping list. Is there anything in the list that they need that is available here? Yes, there's a wood and a metal and a cloth. So we would take all 3 of those and just move them back to the supply. They don't need those things anymore. Then we check, is there anything in this list still that is not available over here? And let's just, for sake of argument, pretend there were 2 things. Pretend there's an animal and some rope. So what you're going to do is you're going to take everything left in their shopping list, and you're going to randomize them. And for each action point available to them, they will order 1 thing. So let's say they've got an action point. All right, they're going to order a rope. That's first. They will order here, and they will always start in the top left and we'll go right and then do the next row. So then the second thing they order is the bird. So that's why, again, I randomized these during setup at the beginning because whatever is in the top left spot will be replaced first. Whatever's in the bottom right will be the last priority to replace for the heir. And so if they need a bunch of stuff to order, you again randomize them and start drawing and replacing. And each thing they order in is using one of their available action points. So you just keep going until you either run out of slots, run out of stuff to order, or run out of action points. And then as normal, during the end of round part, when supplies come in, you'll replace these just as if you had ordered them. So this priority list here of left to right and then top to bottom is something you might want to keep in mind as you're trying to get supplies and as you're ordering things in, because you know this is most likely to go away first and this is likely to stay unless you replace it. All right, next up is the dark alley. And I'm not even going to put a character there. This one's simple enough. First, whenever the heir sends a character to the dark alley, the first thing you do is you flip a coin and use that to determine yes or no, will they rotate these prophecy discs by one space or not. So if yes, rotate them once as normal. If not, no, then they stay where they are. Then again, we've got another chart here. How many action points are available to the heir and what mode are you playing on? And it tells you that is how many special assignment cards to grab. And again, it will be between 1 and 3. And when they gain special assignment cards, they're just going to take the top one from the deck. It doesn't they don't need to look at 2 and discard 1. Just take the top one from the deck, put it in their assignment card pile, and they're going to check for each card they take. They're going to check which card type do they have the fewest of, and after that, if there's a tie or if they don't have any, and then after that, they're just going to use the priority list here on the. It's the same as their performance priority list. So they're going to take a theater card first, prefer that, then they would prefer downtown, and then they would prefer the market, and then they would prefer the workshop last. There are, of course, no special assignment cards for the dark alley itself. So again, just they determine based off action points and a chart, how many of these cards do they get, and they will take the one that they have the fewest of, and then the priority list is just theater, downtown, market, and workshop. So that is the dark alley, fairly simple. And finally, let's talk about the theater. I guess I'll mention here, and I'll mention again after I talk about the theater. If they go to the workshop, they just do nothing. There is no action for the workshop, so don't even worry about it. That one's super easy. But let's talk about the theater. Just like a human player, when they send their magician to the theater, the heir always just places it in the performance spot and does nothing else. And we've kind of already gone over how to figure out how they're prioritizing which day of the week they're going to when they send somebody to the theater. But the magician just goes to the performance spot. But when they send a non-magician to the theater, again, ignore the +1 or -1 action point modifier in the theater spots that are on Thursdays and Sundays. And then after ignoring that, determine how many action points they've got. So that'll just be based off the character that they sent and whether or not they used one of these special assignment cards to get an extra point. And then compare that to this chart. So they'll either have 1, 2, or 3 action points available, and you're playing on easy, normal, or hard. And based off of that, they will place between 1 and 4 trick markers onto theater cards. Now, when determining which tricks to set up, after you determine all right, we need to set up this many tricks, you're going to start grabbing tokens from the leftmost trick in the heir's display here. So we've already determined that these are in order, ideally these are in order of fame, and then if that's a tie, then by shards, and if that's a tie, by money. So they're prioritizing fame. So you're going to grab in that order, and however many you need. So you would start here, grab this one, and then that would be empty. There's 2 more here. You'd grab that, and then you would grab that, and you'd keep working your way down the line until you get enough or until you run out. And then after you've grabbed all your tokens, they're going to determine which card to place a token on. So first, they're going to prioritize a performance card that already has one of their own tricks on it. Barring that, the next thing they'll check is cards that already have your tricks on them. And then third, if there are just no tricks placed or no legal spots available that way, then the leftmost available performance card, so the one that's going to be out for the longest. Then, once a card is selected, they need to place their trick marker in a way to maximize the number of links created. And if there's a tie there, then they will also prioritize ones with Trickerion shards. And then whenever the heir creates a link, they always take the fame, they never take the money bonus. So a couple of notes, if they place 2 different trick markers on the same performance card, they always place them in the order that generates the highest link bonus. Also, don't forget any ongoing abilities such as the Master of Chains here, that ability would still apply. There are abilities in other expansions as well. Then as I said, the heir does collect shards. They can create a link with or without shards. They'll prefer the one with a shard. And if they just can't create a link, they'll just place their trick in the first spot, again, left to right, and then top to bottom, so reading order. Then there are, again, some caveats. So, if sending a non-magician would result in 0 tricks being placed on performances, then ignore that assignment and send a different character instead. So, for example, if by sending this apprentice to the theater, let's say the theater was the priority, sending this apprentice to the theater would somehow generate no tricks being placed. Skip the theater, find the next thing in your priority list. So say this person we'd already gone downtown, theater would be next. That's not going to do anything. All right, then we'll go to market row. And then we'll come back to that assignment the next time. And you'll continue doing that just in order to try and maximize the heir's ability to place tricks. Again, that's not something I've actually run into before. I think it would be hard to do, but that is in the rulebook. Some other notes here. The heir still follows all the normal rules around limit of 1 trick per performance card. I don't think you'll run into this if you follow all the other priorities that we've already discussed, but they never place a trick on a performance card that's due to be removed at the end of this current round unless that's the only space left. But an exception to that is in the very final turn, they don't have that restriction because it's the last chance for the performances of all the cards either way. And if somehow one of the tricks can't be placed in a valid way, skip over it and just go to the next trick. So for example, we were trying to place this diamond and we just had no legal places to place it. Skip it and just grab a club instead. And then just say it again because I said I would. That's how the theater works. But for the workshop, whenever that comes up, basically the heir just skips their turn. They do nothing for the workshop. So that is it for the place character phase. I know that was long and difficult, but once you get it down, you can pretty much just operate off this back page of the booklet here and be good to go. So next up is the performance phase. This will not be as difficult as assigning the characters. That was the hardest part. So the performance phase, you're more or less going to resolve as normal. You're going to go in turn order as you normally would. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whoever's got a magician on that slot, it's their turn to perform. You do your turn completely as normal, but the heir has a couple little quirks about it. So just as the heir ignored these action point modifiers on Thursday and Friday, they also ignore the yield modifiers on Thursday and Friday, both when they're performing and when you perform and you've got some of their tricks on your card. So these are always ignored. So whenever you perform one of the heir's tricks, they just get the yield that's printed. Same thing, I guess. When they perform their tricks, they just get the printed yields. But something different about the heir, after their tricks have been performed, instead of the trick markers going back to the supply, they go directly back onto the card. So the trick is perpetually prepared. So that's important to note. And then when it's the heir's turn to perform, they're going to pick a card where the bonus for the links and the performance card bonus, the bonus on the bottom of the card itself, where that plus the links is the highest. And if it's tied, just like with the yield on the tricks, are going to prioritize fame and then shards and then money. And then final ties would be broken from left to right. And as normal, the heir can only pick a card with at least one of their own trick markers on it. And then they'll receive, the link bonuses and they'll get their trick yields, they'll get their link bonuses, they'll get the performance card bonuses as normal, but they don't get these backstage bonuses as normal. Instead, they just get a flat bonus for every character they have backstage. Doesn't matter if it's a specialist or an apprentice or the protege if you're playing with that. Just count up the number that they have backstage and they get a bonus depending on the difficulty mode. So if you're playing on easy, they gain nothing. That is easy. If you're playing on normal, they get 2 coins per character, 2 money per character. And if you're playing on hard, 1 fame per character backstage. So they're, again, just ignoring these typical bonuses that still apply to you. So that's the performance phase. Not too bad. Now let's go through the end of turn phase, the whole cleanup step. So first is pay wages. Again, you do that as normal, but the heir does not pay wages. Instead, you just check how many total coins they have here in their supply. And for every 10 coins they have, they're just going to spend them. So they go away. They spend their coins to gain fame, and that will depend on difficulty. Again, so for easy mode, 2 fame for every 10 coins. 3 fame on normal mode and 3 fame on hard mode. So every 10 coins, they're just going to spend it and get some fame. That is their version of pay wages. And then any coins that are left over, of course, stay on the board. Then they're going to get their characters back, including any new ones that they just received. And again, you're going to slot them left to right in priority order, first with the magician, then with your specialists in any order, and then apprentices. And if they have too many to fit here, just stack up the rest of them on that last little space there. Then you're going to move the performance cards as normal, and the last one will fall off. But if the last one, if a theater card falls off and it has trick markers belonging to the heir on it, they still get the yield, which is a real nice for them, bad for you. They still get the yield -1 coin and -1 fame, to of course a minimum of 0. So if their tricks don't get performed, they're still getting stuff for it. So watch out for that. And then as normal, when you're getting rid of when you're taking your assignment cards back, if there are any special assignment cards for the Heir, those are discarded as they usually would be to the bottom of the deck they came from. So finally, we can get into end game scoring. So at the end of the game, if the Heir still has any tricks out on performance cards, again, they will get the yield of all of those tricks -1 coin and 1 fame each. So all their tricks get performed. Then, just like a human player, they gain 1 fame per Trickerion shard to a maximum of 20, and 2 fame per special assignment card that they still have, again to a maximum of 20. They don't get anything for leftover coins, so that's different from you. And then, depending on difficulty mode, they gain a fixed amount of fame for every level 3 trick, and bonus fame for characters above the first 6. So again, I'll just show you the chart here. Easy, normal, or hard mode. For every level 3 trick they have, they gain 5, 7, or 10 fame. And then for every bonus or every character they have beyond the 6th, so 7 and up, is worth 0, 1, or 2 fame. Again, easy, normal, or hard mode. So that at long last as it. My goodness, that was a big one. As I said at the outset, if you have questions or if you think I made a mistake, please let me know in the comments. I would love to hear about it either way. And then if you'd like to see some of this in action, I am releasing a solo playthrough of Trickerion with Dark Alley, just as I've described here this week. And I can't promise that I'm going to play well, but I am going to do my best to follow the rules. So sometimes it just helps to see it in action. Again, if you've made it this far, please like the video, leave a comment, subscribe if you haven't done so yet. You can share it, you can hype it, you can find it on Board Game Geek, leave a like there. Don't forget to pick up the Table for One micro badge while you're on the site. And as always, my coffee page is available for donations. If that's something you have the means to do and would like to do it, it would be very appreciated. And over the next several weeks here, I will go over the other Trickerion expansions and I will do solo playthroughs with each of them. So keep an eye out for that as well. And in that regard, if you have any special requests for something you'd like to see in those playthroughs, like a certain magician or a certain matchup, let me know. Again, I can't promise that I'm going to do anything very well, but I'd be happy to show you what it looks like. So that's what I've got this time on Table for One. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope this was helpful, and I look forward to my solo playthrough of Trickerion and seeing you in that video. So until then, take it easy.